Rocky and Mark for WhiskyWhistle. Two Brewers Yukon Single Malt Whiskey Release 8 Innovative. Is this a Canadian single malt that you should be hunting down? Stay tuned for the Two Brewers Release 8 Innovative WhiskyWhistle. Hey friends, Mark here with sidekick Rocky at WhiskyWhistle, your wise choice in independent whiskey and spirits reviews, bringing you whiskey review number 256. This is a special Canadian single malt. This comes thanks to the Yukon Spirits Company, and especially from Jasmine Sangria, who is the marketing guru with the company. Now, this is, I guess, their most recent release. They might be releasing another, maybe release 9 should be coming out very soon. I think they release about 4 per year. 4 per year, 3 per year, something like that. So there should be release 9 coming out very soon. And as all of the releases have been thus far, this one is equally interesting. Well, let me tell you, it is not only interesting in its conception, its idea, but it's also very interesting in the glass. Now, the interesting thing about this one, and I will not say interesting again, the unique thing about this is that they have actually added some hops to the mash. The mash is the part where basically that's you're making the beer. The part where they make the beer, they've added some hops. So they've actually, what they've done is they've made a beer, a hopped beer, rather than an unhopped beer, which most whiskey is made from. There's a few exceptions. But anyway, so they've taken that nicely hopped beer and then they've made a single malt whiskey from it. Anyway, we'll get that poured. I've got one here already. This was from my tasting earlier, my second tasting. So we'll go through the third tasting, and everybody, well, you should say hello to Rocky. Rocky, say hi to everybody. Got your ear turned over? Say hello to everybody. Hi. Good boy, hey? Do you like being on camera? You're not sure, are you? Well, you're on camera now. That's right. Okay, you go sit down, and then you're going to join me for a little bit of the nosing and the tasting. Okay, Rocky? Woo! He's wondering what's going on. Okay, good boy. Sit down. All right. There we go. Okay, so let's get it poured first of all. This is 43% ABV. And when you think about Canadian whiskeys, well, on the whole, that is certainly a nice bonus. As I opened this very substantial sample, I think this was roughly about 100 milliliters, so thank you so much for the large sample. Let's pour a nice sized glass. There we are. That's about 25, maybe 30 milliliters. And look at that, I've still got yet another 30 milliliters left. I will not read the tasting notes, I will tell you my own. Maybe I'll throw those in afterwards. I've already told you what's gone on here, and in terms of age, well, the first release was 6 or 7 years old, and that's what my palate is telling me, that this is a little bit further age than that, so this might be actually more towards around 8 years old in age. All right, well, we've got it poured, and we'll get through the checking out of the color. First of all, we will look at the legs of the whiskey, then we'll check out the nosing, the palate, and the finish before we give it a WhiskyWhistle whiskey score. I'll tell you right now that I'm very, very impressed with this. Extremely so. Now then, let's have a look at the color. What do you see there for color? Now, to my eyes, that's actually quite pale. And something like, I guess just like a light gold or a darker straw color. And according to my eyes and my senses, I have a feeling that this is natural in color. Again, it doesn't say so on the label. I wish it did. And since they're only releasing 920 bottles, there's absolutely no reason for them to put any color in. All right, anyway, very appealing color and very nice to look at. It's also very fragrant, and I think that has a lot to do with the hopping. And I should note that a Yukon Spirits Company, which makes the Two Brewers single malt, is owned by Yukon Brewing. So it was a brewery first, and then the distillery came later in 2009. Legs. Let's check out the legs of Two Brewers Release 8. All right, whoops, as I spill it. There we go. Well, actually, we get some pretty nicely slowly drizzly legs going on there. Look at that. All right, interesting. And very sticky. Look at the globlets that are left there. So that tells you that this actually has quite a bit of substance to it. I would also say that perhaps it might actually be unchill filtered. It's a myth that you have to make it 46% to leave it unchill filtered. It's totally not true. Many of them are. This may not be. There's a few that I know that are not, that are as low as 42, even 41% at unchill filtered. All right, anyway. On to the nose. The first thing that comes to mind when I smell this is that it reminds me so much of Glenmorangie Original. And that would be a couple years older than this one. So this actually has quite a mature nose for its age. It's got some citrus, just like Glenmorangie does. And one of the cool things that I really like about this nose is that it smells like double bubble gum, including that dusting of cornstarch and powdered sugar that they wrap on it so it doesn't stick to the wrapper. Anyway, some of my other tasting notes here. Citrus and malt. Yeah, and I wrote a dead ringer for Glenmorangie. There's a floral, kind of a waxiness to it. And a slight almond scent is also appearing in the glass here, according to my notes from earlier. But boy, that classic bubblegum scent. You know, the standard pink bubblegum. What flavor is that? Bubblegum flavor, I guess. They make ice creams in that flavor. There's certainly there must be a jelly bean that's a bubblegum flavor, I would imagine. All right, onto the palate. Cheers, everyone, and thanks again to Jasmine. Cheers. Now, for 43%, it's really very, very soft and buttery and smooth. And again, you know, that's not a word we like to throw around so much when we're talking about whiskey. But, you know, the 40% standard whiskeys are very good for being, well, very drinkable. Easy to drink, easy to approach. If you take the right size of sip, you're not going to scorch your throat with the fiery nature of distilled liquor. Anyway, so in terms of its smoothness, at 43%, it's acting actually very much softer than that. Very approachable, if you know what I mean. The citrus, that bubblegum also comes through on the palate. And I mentioned some spices appear after this. And I wrote coriander and Chinese 5-spice white pepper. That peppery dryness really builds when you hang on to it in your mouth for a little while. Reminds me a bit of Talisker in that regard. Not the peatiness, but that peppery nature. Then you get a very sweet, savory type of a flavor. And get this is what I likened it to. This is what was in my mind when I tasted this. Sweet and sour breaded pork. Kind of like an American Chinese food style sweet and sour breaded pork. Alright, so those are my tasting notes. And the finish is actually medium to long. You swallow and you get the spice, you get that bit of pepperiness. The bubblegum is still there. There's a tropical fruitiness also that's appearing. And that kind of savory umami type of a flavor also remains in my mouth, which is interesting. Medium dryness, mild dryness, a bit of honey. There's a light grassy floral, kind of like a field of clover. And I wrote there a pepper and herbal blast. All right, so that's the tasting notes. Neat. Now let's add a little bit of water, not too much. I'm going to add about 1 milliliter of water. There we go. And we'll mix that about. You know, it's actually been quite a while since I recorded. I think I released my last video that I recorded, I guess about 7 days ago. So it sounds not that bad, right? But the thing is that I would have recorded that a good month ago. Maybe even 5 weeks at this point. Anyway, time runs away on me. And, you know, springtime is a time when you get spring sniffles, and I've got 3 kids, and so that's just a recipe for disaster in the springtime. Not only that, I have to start preparing to move, and, well, it's not easy running a household with 3 children, 3 young children. Every day, it's just like a bomb exploded in here. And if you've got 2 or 3 kids, I'm sure you know what I mean. If you have an only child, well, I even hear that they can also be very, very explosive with their toys or in the early years. Now, let's get on to the nosing and tasting with a bit of water added and see what happens. And when I smell this, I still get, in fact, even more so, more double bubble. And there's also a wood smoke that's appearing here. That's really nice. Still some citrus. Pepper notes are also appearing on the nose now. And in my notes I wrote, seasoned, lightly grilled meat and wood smoke. All right, on to the palate. Cheers again. It's much more poppy. Fruitier, livelier, a little bit of tartness, kind of mixing things in with that sweetness, so that's nice. And I'm getting pears, I'm getting ripe mango. Then at the end of the palate, and as you smack your lips, you'll be greeted with a nice little bit of papaya, which is really interesting, and I'm very happy to find this flavor here in this Canadian single malt from Yukon. Now then, I wrote here the finish, pardon me, very similar, but the papaya is really noticeable now with water added in the finish. Well, that's actually an entirely new note that I didn't notice when it was neat. I really quite like that. A little bit more astringent now, but in a way that just sort of enhances the experience. Lovely. Now, I want to compare with the one that I poured much earlier. This is what I used to do at the very beginning, by the way, the beginning of WhiskyWhistle. An hour. So this has been about an hour, I'd say. Let's see how it is. Swish it about a little bit. Oh, really interesting. Even more Glenmorangie. In fact, it's kind of reminding me of the Astar 2017 release. And you should know how much I like that one. That was one of my 2017 WhiskyWhistle Whiskey of the Year award winners. And the longer you leave it, it gets a little bit pepperier, a little bit edgier, still a lot of fruit, but nicely balanced with pepper and a very interesting experience. Nice to savor and wait for a period of time, and you'll be rewarded continually, probably for a good hour, nosing and tasting that Two Brewers Yukon Single Malt Whiskey Release 8 Innovative. A few other things here. If people are interested in, if there's any stores interested in carrying this, I'm not sure about exporting to the States yet, but anyway, the UPC code is 6276-1962-1190. Two Brewers, by the way, was a 2018 Canadian Whiskey Awards winner for Micro Distillery of the Year. Congratulations to Two Brewers Yukon Spirits. Now, should I tell you the official tasting notes? Well, let's look at that a little bit. Tasting notes: delicate aromas of light coriander. Well, that's what I did say. And the hops, honeyed citrus. Well, I also mentioned honey and citrus, so that's interesting. And I promise you, I did not read this beforehand. That's kind of a point that I like to make. Of not looking at the label so much before I review the whiskey. Light touch of malt with a brandy-like core. The slightly citrus notes of the hop tickle high on the palate. Yeah, that's that pepperiness to it, I would say. Honey and butter show briefly with a wisp of spice in the short finish. Well, they say it's short. I say it's medium to long. Well, anyway. And if you're interested in finding out more about this, I'll give you some contact information here. Dave Gardner, Dave at uconbeer.com, and Kevin Guinan, Gianan, Kevin at uconbeer.com, and also the marketing director, Jasmine Sangria. Well, I would guess that's going to be Jasmine at uconbeer.com. Alright, so that's Two Brewers Yukon Single Malt Whiskey Release 8 Innovative. Now then, on to the WhiskyWhistle Whiskey Score. What is that going to be? Well, for Release 8, that's right here, the WhiskyWhistle Whiskey Score is going to be 91 out of 100. Yeah, you heard right. 91 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle Whiskey Score for Release 8 Innovative from Two Brewers Yukon Single Malt Whiskey. And I wrote here, it's my favorite so far. Greater maturity. And it's also very reminiscent of Glenmorangie, which happens to be my favorite big distillery. In terms of whether or not you should be hunting this down, I would say absolutely. It's definitely worth it. I believe they go for, well, a fair penny. So it's quite a bit more than your typical Canadian whiskey. But it's also very different and much more costly to produce. Being a pot still, being a micro distillery, being from Yukon. I mean, apparently they even use glacier-fed streams for the water. Anyway, so there's a lot of high costs involved there. In terms of Canadian single malt whiskey, it's a little bit premium. However, I believe that the innovation and the creativity with which they produce their whiskey is second to none in Canada, although there's a few other distilleries that I have yet to try. A few in, I think there's one in Alberta, there's one or two in BC. I believe possibly soon to be one in Winnipeg. And there's also, of course, Canada's oldest, maybe North America's oldest single malt producer, which is Glenora Distillery, known to you as Glen Breton, over in Nova Scotia. All right, anyway, so 91 out of 100. Go and get that one. Make a hunt for it and let me know what you think. Have you tried this or any other Two Brewers Yukon Single Malt Whiskey? Let me know. Leave a comment. We forgot to ask Rocky what he thought of Two Brewers Release 8. Okay, Rocky? Rocky, what do you think of this? Well, he's licking his palate. Licking his chops. Rocky. Let's see. Let that evaporate a little bit so it's not really strong. What do you think? Well, it looks like it's not for him. No, not all whiskeys are. But, well, I like it, and I think you will too. You sleepy, huh? Now, don't forget to subscribe to Whiskey Whistle by clicking the link right here, that little circle. Click that, and you'll be subscribed, okay? And would you like to get involved a little bit further with Whiskey Whistle? Then join me on Patreon, patreon.com/whiskywhistle. I've got 8 patrons already, so that's a good start. What will you get? You'll get the Whiskey Whistle newsletter every month. You also get the Patreon Patron Priority Pass. And what that is a day's, what can I call that? A day's pre-access to videos when they're ad-free before I release them to the general public on YouTube. So hopefully that's of interest. There's also more to come on the Patreon account, so do check that out, okay? All right, anyway, thanks a lot, and we'll see you for the next one. Goodbye. Thanks for watching Whiskey Whistle. Be sure to subscribe, and don't forget to give this video a like, and leave a comment down below. Be sure to stay tuned next time to join me, the host of the show, Mark, as I explore more whiskeys with you. Take care now, and we'll see you next time.